Tonight on News 5 Live, an explosive investigation inside the BDF. An internal inquiry is launched amid multiple allegations of sexual-related offenses committed by senior officers. Another murder in the city. A man is executed on Cumberbatch Street as he headed to buy weed. A police officer is injured on Map Street after he crashed on his motorcycle. The Deputy Prime Minister, Patrick Faber, fights back at Facebook posts aimed at him from within his party. The PSU backpedals on Jumoke Castro, and at-risk youths visit the prison to hear firsthand why freedom should be cherished. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
In life, there's always two
evening. Welcome to News 5 Live for Wednesday, January 29th. I am Marlene Cuellar. The BDF is investigating some of its own tonight on the heels of explosive allegations. Those under investigation are senior officers who stand accused of sexual assault and abuse of authority committed against female recruits. The recruits are to be matriculating to soldiers in 2 days' time, but reports are that they have endured unspeakable acts at the hands of their superiors during training. News 5 has learned that some officials were only made aware of the issue on Tuesday and that they are now uncovering a number of infractions committed. While the BDF has yet to comment on the allegations, they have confirmed that they received a complaint and that an inquiry has been launched. A number of sources reached out to News 5 to share reports of some of the incidents uncovered, several of which were corroborated by members of the force. Reporter Andrea Palanco tells us more about some of these allegations.
As the Belize Defense Force prepares for its 42nd anniversary and annual passing out ceremony for Recruit Intake 65, it finds itself trying to contain what some inside the BDF say may be a scandal of sexual assaults and abuse of power committed by top BDF officers. Today, we reached out for an official comment from the BDF. Through WhatsApp messages, the Brigadier General Stephen Ortega confirmed that there is an ongoing internal inquiry because they received complaints. He told us that he cannot comment until the inquiry wraps up. A source confirmed that high-ranking officials were caught off guard about the allegations and they launched an investigation on Tuesday of this week. One person inside the BDF describes the preliminary reports as, quote-unquote, absolutely disgusting and, quote-unquote, unbelievably nasty criminal acts. A female recruit reported that a senior officer in the training team sexually assaulted her. The allegations are that she made a report and that at least one senior member of training staff turned a blind eye. There is another unconfirmed report that a female recruit was impregnated by a senior officer during her recruit training and that her family reportedly complained to the BDF officials, calling it a rape case. The nature of the relationship between recruit and instructor is not clear at this time, but even if it were consensual, as per BDF rules, relations between recruits and training staff are prohibited. We've been also reliably informed that if the recruit is indeed pregnant, she'd be the second consecutive recruit to become pregnant during training at Price Barracks. Allegations are that so far the inquiry has uncovered more than 50, some say as many as 70 complaints of gross sexual offenses and abuse of authority. A senior member of the BDF says that while the internal investigation is still in its early stages, they anticipate that criminal charges will be made against one or more officers. The allegations, we're told, are against officers of ranks such as corporals, lieutenants, and captains. Other reports coming out of the BDF are that the training staff members may have breached other rules in their management of the recruits. News 5 was reliably informed that the recruit training staff ordered 100 or so new recruits to pay $250 for a party. If those monies were handed over, that would have been $25,000 in the hands of these senior officers. Another report alleges that the officers also demanded that recruits pay $70 for t-shirts. Those monies, we're told, would be split as follows: $45 each for a shirt for each recruit, and $25 remaining from each recruit would be contributed towards t-shirts for their instructors. We note that these are allegations that are just now unfolding, but credible sources inside the BDF say that the reports of abuse particularly committed against recruits have plagued the force for years, but that the dismissive culture has allowed for these violations and criminal acts to go unchecked. These latest allegations put into focus how deeply rooted sexual harassment and gross abuse of power are in the military culture. These are oftentimes committed against women and new recruits who feel powerless and fear retaliation if they report the misogynistic and predatory behaviors of their superiors. Despite a worldwide movement of women speaking out about these unlawful acts, women in Belize still find it difficult to report for many reasons, including fear of public ridicule, which breeds re-victimization and reprisal at the hands of their bosses. While this issue has dominated international headlines, the issue is still commonplace among military bodies around the world. A 2018 Pentagon report shows that approximately 20,500 service members in the USA experienced sexual assault in the military, about a 38% increase since 2016. We're not able to determine if these kinds of statistics are available for BDF and other law enforcement entities in Belize. A source has told News 5 that these allegations call for a scrutiny at the measures that may or may not be in place to protect officers, particularly women and service members who are just entering the force, who may be vulnerable to these kinds of abuses. According to General Ortega, the inquiry into the allegations is expected to wrap up next week. Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
There was a murder in the city before 9 o'clock on Tuesday night. Delbert Alvarez was shot and killed on Cumberbatch Street not far from his house. The victim's family says that he'd gone to buy weed when he was shot on the veranda of a house. There are tensions in certain neighborhoods in the city in the aftermath of a string of recent murders, and it is not known if Alvarez fell victim to the hostilities. News 5's Dwayne Moody reports.
Around 8:45 p.m. on January 28th, shots rang out on Cumberbatch Street off LaCroix Boulevard in the Lake Independence area of Belize City, and another man lay dead. Delbert Alvarez lived with his girlfriend a few blocks away from where he was murdered. He left home minutes before and headed to buy weed from a nearby peddler. There is where he was ambushed and killed.
As I could reach, I hear a gunshot. But I don't think that my little brother, because he no straight at night. I cut off the phone, I put the phone past silent. But after 10, my mama tell me, Lonette, he said before I even open the door, she tell me, Lonette, they just shut up Delbert and Delbert dead. I ball out and I tell her, no, my little brother. No.
The family rushed to the morgue at the KHMH, and it wasn't until hours later that they were able to identify Alvarez's body. His sister, Lynette Garnett, says that the police have not informed them of what really happened, so she went looking for answers earlier today. She ended up at a house on Cumberbatch Street, several blocks away from where she lives. It's on the veranda that Alvarez laid mortally wounded. Overwhelmed with emotions, Garnett says her brother cried out for their mother.
This morning I try to pick up the pieces. I tell my command, I say, let's go make a find out that what part Delbert get shot, why Delbert get shot. I asked a couple of people, they said they don't know, but people would even talk. Yeah. We gone wrong by what area where he know, and I said, your mother said, you don't know what part the young man get shot. I said, I'm a lead brother. He said, I'm right over there. He said, a chance. He said, he come buy weed. And the last word where he hollered at ma, and he shut up in his stomach.
Garnett says that her brother had run-ins with the law for petty crimes, but that Alvarez was not a killer. She believes that he was killed because of tensions in the area in the wake of the murder of Ronald Michael on O'Donnell Street one day earlier.
Then I shouldn't be doing my little brother that. My little brother have run-ins with the police, but he not kill nobody. He not kill nobody. They put a hole in it for we heart. They don't know what they do to we. We ain't have no money to bury my little brother. They don't know my little brother only 24. He ain't start live life yet. What he could do so to anybody. What he do so to no broke his foot if he do something. Broke his hand. But not killer. It killer like he not nobody and then they left hand down there. My brother, he not for that era. He not for a different era. He just can't buy. Strange person, alright, strange person, I get it. One for one. But they shouldn't be do that. They should me think before they do. Because just like how they hurt and they still hurt, we hurt more.
Was Alvarez a victim of ongoing gang rivalry in the city? Or was he simply at the wrong place at the wrong time? He didn't have any children and was only one of 2 siblings. Garnett says that at this time the family cannot help but reflect on how his life was so callously taken and the difficult task of informing his only nephew that he is dead.
When we just grow up, Delbert got work. If Delbert make $5, Delbert give me much 3 and he keep 2. You want your eyebrow do, Delbert do it. Delbert does bad pampering, that Delbert. Delbert always a smile, you talk to Delbert, big slow down, big go find a job. He got a smile by his face. The smile we are always remember the smile and what we up doing. It hurt. This morning I couldn't even sleep because I could recall Friday I see my brother. They now blue deer and his stockings by head. That, and when I go and look for Anna, them more about after 12 this morning, because then I get to see her. Oh, my brother, then the two memories playing in my mind, and that no good, none of them no good doing. None of them. My baby had one uncle, no auntie. How he remember that he only 8?
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
A cop on a motorcycle is fortunate to have escaped gunshots this afternoon. He was riding in the area of Map Street in Belize City, where neighbors say they heard gunshots from a passing SUV, presumably meant for William Woodeye. The frightening ordeal was enough to cause him to crash into a parked vehicle, and he landed on the pavement. Here's News 5's Dwayne Moody.
Just after 2 p.m. today, residents near Map Street on North Side Belize City say that the sound of gunshots echoed in the area. They ran to the scene to discover a police officer on the pavement a number of feet away from the intersection with Cleghorn Street. One resident told us that he complained of an injury to the upper chest.
I was walking, coming from the store, right, and I heard the gunshot. And then I told my son, I said, boy, go sit down, what? Because we don't use the gunshot already. By the time I walked around there I saw the police officer there on the ground completely out. And there was a lady that was talking to him, you know. But he said somebody fired at him and he ended up in the vehicle.
So he was riding his motorcycle?
Yeah, he was on his motorcycle.
And someone from a vehicle just targeted him?
Somebody from, I don't know where they came from, but they fired a shot at him.
Is this frightening to know that this is now happening where law enforcement officers are being
I got
attacked?
cold feet. I'm being honest, I have cold feet right now. I'm still at shock, you know, because I know the police officer.
The officer has been identified as William Woodeye. Unconfirmed reports reaching News 5 say that he was traveling on a motorcycle when a gunman from inside an SUV opened fire at the officer. Woodeye reportedly lost control of the motorcycle and slammed into a parked vehicle. We can confirm that the police are looking at surveillance footage in the area to determine the incident. Woodeye was transported to the KHMH and fortunately did not have any gunshot injury. Sean Haylock says that gun violence has spread to the area and that residents are living in fear.
I'm going to be honest, nowhere is safe to walk. Nowhere. Nowhere. I live here. Actually hear gunshot over that side, you know, so you're not safe in your own home anymore. It's just so shocking.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
Police have still not been able to crack the murder of Denroy Nicholas in Punta Gorda. Nicholas was shot and killed as he exited his mother's house to go into his room. His life was cut short the night before he was to appear in court. As his family grieves, they are preparing to lay him to rest. Here is News 5's Isani Caetano with this report.
The Sunday night execution of 23-year-old Denroy Nicholas in Punta Gorda remains under investigation, despite police not having brought any charges against persons in custody. Nicholas, who was set to appear in court in Dangriga, was shot once to the right side of the chest by someone who waylaid him inside his yard on Toucan Street. Whether his demise is in any way related to the matter before the Supreme Court is a nexus that is yet to be established.
What have the police been able to share with you? Perhaps their investigation, if they've made an arrest, if they're looking for these individuals. Have they been in contact with you?
Yes, so far they came this morning, and according to them, they're doing their best to find whoever is the culprit. And then thereafter, we're going to get ready for the burial.
That was on Monday. It has been 2 days since, and police are seemingly no closer to making an arrest, despite detaining a pair of men in the wake of the deadly shooting. Is there an element of turf warfare being driven by outsiders who have relocated to Punta Gorda?
To some extent, yes, and those persons are regularly targeted and searched by the police. That is a part of the strategy ongoing down there in PG.
Phyllis Nicholas is a mother of 8. Over the years, she has lost 3 of her sons to various forms of violence. Admittedly, she told News 5 that Denroy has had issues with other individuals in PG.
So far, he will be the third one I buried. 7 years ago, I had my 24-year-old then got burned in a house here in PG in revenge of the same whatever you call this. And exactly 10 years, the 29th of this January, the first one will take 10 years since they chopped him in Rolling Creek. So for me, it's very hard, but like, God no give you more than what you could take. So I'm trying to cope with the situation. I'm trying to be strong. I still have 3 sons and my 2 daughters, and I have my granddaughters to be strong for. So I'm dealing with the situation the best I could, but it's not an easy road.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.
The UDP's leadership race is getting tense and the party appears to be hopelessly fractured. Scheduled for February 9th, John Saldivar and Patrick Faber will go head-to-head to become the next UDP leader and hold over the reins of government if the Prime Minister of Belize steps down before the term of the government expires. On Tuesday, Saldivar posted that people from inside his party are conspiring against him. Today, Faber took a jab at a convicted criminal. Articles posted by the Associated Press of Belize on Facebook have ruffled Faber's feathers. Faber took to Facebook to post, quote, "The convicted criminal who is behind this page should be aware of the following. 1. I've never accepted $50,000 monthly from Dermot. 2. I've never recommended Dermot to be an ambassador or honorary consul. 3. I've never been convicted of a criminal charge. 4. I've never been incarcerated save for my 6 hours in the Belmopan Piss House in 2005 after my now infamous police chase. 5. While the BNTU and MOE have our difference from time to time, we both work for the betterment of the lives of children and by extension Belize," unquote. The Facebook page Associated Press of Belize is allegedly run by Shine Barrow, the Prime Minister's son, who has expressed his support for Saldivar. Jamoki Castro, son of UDP Minister Edmund Castro, failed to explain his December 2019 Facebook vile comments that attracted widespread condemnation and disgust. Castro attacked Plus TV's Shasta Wade with a threat of gang rape. Castro, who is a public officer attached to the Belize Tax Service, was placed on administrative leave after a complaint that he brought the department into disrepute was filed. He was given 10 days to proffer an explanation, after which the matter would have been forwarded to the Public Service Commission for final determination. That did not happen, and the PSU's letter sent to the Financial Secretary Joseph Waite tells why. The letter takes a different tune from the December 20th, 2019 PSU release, which expressed zero tolerance against acts and threats of violence against women. The recent letter sent by PSU's acting industrial relations officer, Jacqueline Willoughby, to Waite states, quote, "Our member is entitled to equal protection of the law. This means if there is a signed and sealed allegation that is purported to have occurred during the execution of his duties, that complaint must be signed, sealed, and delivered. We would therefore be grateful for that written complaint," unquote. Willoughby stresses that there are no regulations that speak to the conduct of an officer outside of the performance of his duty. And as such, Willoughby points out that, quote, "A mere citing of the regulations that you do without the mentioned allegation does not suffice for a member to respond appropriately," unquote. The PSU tells the Financial Secretary that Castro was unlawfully placed on administrative leave since he was not properly informed of the regulation that he broke. It also says that placing Castro on administrative leave borders on abuse. The PSU states that Castro maintains that he did not contravene regulations and has committed no major misconduct during the performance of the functions of his post. Willoughby's letter represents a backpedaling from their initial reaction in December following the incident. Castro's comments attracted condemnation across sectors. The House Speaker, among other parliamentarians, said the following on December 20th, 2019.
More recently, a woman was attacked with a threat of rape on social media, which is terrible. It tells us, though, what is happening in our society, and we have to come together to regulate social media. We cannot continue to have these kinds of attacks on us.
We find it outrageous, despicable, nasty, and intolerable, Mr. Speaker, and it should be condemned by all of us in this House and by the society on a whole. Who does this young man believe that he is? That he's entitled to be able to write such nastiness against the wife of Pastor Lewis, and that he can get away with it? We just ended 16 days of activism. And now here we have this young man who works for the Belize Tax Service, who is paid by taxpayers, that he feels that he has every right to be able to write this type of nastiness on Facebook. We are paying his salary, Madam Speaker. We, the taxpayers.
I want to say to the Leader of the Opposition that we on this side of the House entirely share his sense of outrage, disgust, and revulsion. Our party has issued a statement this morning condemning that post out of hand. And I am happy to put on record in this House the fact that the members of government, the members of this administration, join with the larger party in saying that that kind of post is disgusting, entirely out of order, cannot be countenanced, and I repeat, must absolutely and in the most unqualified, unreserved terms be condemned.
The trial of Lev Derman in Utah is attracting attention in many countries, including Belize, because one witness has named a local government official and says he has text messages to corroborate what he will tell the court to prove that Derman was involved in money laundering on an international scale. As arguments begin, critical information is expected from Jacob Kingston. Here is a report from Isani Caetano.
Opening arguments in the case against Lev Derman got underway today inside the U.S. District Court of Utah. Derman stands accused of participating and masterminding a tax credit scheme that netted him and business associates Jacob and Isaiah Kingston over $500 million through a biofuel company in Salt Lake City. The brothers both pleaded guilty to money fraud and several other charges in July 2019. Jacob Kingston, however, is set to testify against Derman and is expected to provide details on the money laundering scheme, which included the purchase of high-end vehicles and properties. Derman, on the other hand, has pleaded not guilty to 10 counts, including money laundering and mail fraud. Derman's counsel, Los Angeles-based attorney Mark Geragos, is expected to rebut arguments put forward by the prosecution that he was in fact the chief architect of the scheme. Under the phony operation, Washakie Renewable Energy created false production records in order to qualify for and receive renewable fuel tax credits. The proceeds were then legitimized through a number of purchases and investments overseas that spanned a 6-year period between 2010 and 2016. The trial is underway in Utah, but many Belizeans are anxiously awaiting the testimony of Jacob Kingston, who will take the stand and testify that Derman paid a UDP minister $25,000 monthly in bribes. While John Saldivar's name has appeared as one of those individuals who both men corresponded with via text messages, he has denied all claims of having accepted any monies from Derman. The matter continues on Thursday.
Coming up, a visit to Wagner's facility provides an eye-opening experience for youths. A group of at-risk young men and women headed to the Wagner's facility for a first-hand experience of life behind prison walls. There they heard from the teenage inmates of the harsh realities of incarceration. The visit is part of a program at different high schools to discourage negativity and crime, and instead chart a life forward for the youth rather than fall into the grips of crime and violence. The sobering experience gave the youth good reason to choose freedom. News 5's Hippolyta Novello reports.
The young men of Wagner's Youth Facility are on a transformation journey. Once members of society, these 28 young men now live behind the prison walls, on remand for different crimes such as murder and robbery. Today, the young men presented themselves as living examples of what not to do. Vulnerable youths from James Garbutt SDA School, Frank Lizama Training Center, and Gateway Youth Center in Belize City heard testimonials from the incarcerated youths.
And we're trying to get the young people on the outside to understand that they need not continue with their negative activity. They need to pay attention, listen to their parents and their teachers, and avoid coming to prison. The guys from Wagner's are giving testimonies today as to the troubles and their tribulation that they face in their lives and their new approach while they're here about knowing that they are sorry that they lost their freedom. So they are insisting to the young people who are outside to cherish their freedom.
The testimonials focused on the young men's journey from their lives in society to being residents at the prison and what they're trying to do to change their lives.
They have a lot of stuff like some of us, none of them read. Then I think so as a new child and stuff, well, we struggle with a lot of things, we have a lot of problems. All kinds of problems.
Well, the two young men who have given testimonies today have came to us about a year or two ago, and both charged with capital offenses, and at the end of the day they came with a different attitude. And what happened while they were here is that we showed them love, we nurtured them, we instilled values and great morals in them, and now they have a different perspective on life, and it's reflecting in their behavior. Both young men are sitting on a Kaina online high school program right now and doing well, I must say, and have been promoted to Fort Farm.
While it is to hope that today's message will live on with the youths as they grow in an unforgiving world, Director of the Wagner's Youth Facility, William Dawson, stressed on the importance of the family.
Well, you know, one of the great issues we face with our young people right now is the lack of proper parenting, and a lot of them come from poverty-stricken community, and they have very low self-esteem issues, and so it's very easy for them to get influenced and caught up in negative activity. And so the testimonies today are towards the young people who are outside, and my guys are trying to explain to them, avoid bad company and keep on the straight path, and try to think positive and surround themselves with positive people who will encourage them and allow them to grow as strong, independent young people.
Reporting for News 5, Hippolyta Novello.
After being in prison since 2013, Paul Smith walked away from the charge of murder. Smith was accused of the April 2013 murder of Frank Neal, but in court today, the prosecution entered a nolle prosequi due to lack of evidence. Justice Marilyn Williams then ordered the release of Smith. Neal was executed on Glen Street, where he had gone to buy food. He was shot in the head and died on the spot. Chief Justice Kenneth Benjamin is yet to render a decision where a claim against the government of Belize in respect of the Petro-Carib Fund is concerned. That judgment was to have been handed down on January 20th, but the CJ took ill last week and the matter was postponed. Chief Justice Benjamin attended the celebration of the Chinese New Year over the weekend and has since returned to office. But a decision in the suit brought by the People's United Party is still very much up in the air. This afternoon, we asked Attorney General Michael Parafit for a response on the delay. He says that while the AG's ministry cannot compel the court to make a ruling, all parties are anticipating the outcome of the trial.
Well, we got information that the matter was set for a decision last week. When we turned up, the marshal indicated to us that the Chief Justice would not be coming in that day and would be sick. and would probably not be returning to office until today, Monday. So, like everybody else, we were expecting that once he came back from his illness, he would just simply read the decision to the air whenever he would be free. But all we were told is that has been postponed indefinitely. We don't know when he will give a new date for the announcement of his decision. It could be tomorrow, could be the next day. We don't know. So like everybody else, we have to wait and see. We can't instruct the court when to decide, so we just have to wait.
There was a slight increase in consumer prices in the month of December 2019 when compared to December 2018. The All Items Consumer Price Index rose slightly by 0.2% in the basic basket of selected goods and services. According to the figures from the Statistical Institute of Belize, reductions in prices for fuel, rent, and liquefied petroleum gas were not enough to offset the higher prices seen in numerous food items, international airfares, and tertiary education fees. The annual inflation rate for 2019 stood at 0.2%. Prices for items in the food and non-alcoholic beverages category increased by 0.8% due to a spike in fresh vegetables and meat products. As to imports in December, the bill rose to $162 million, with the biggest increase recorded in manufactured goods such as metal structures and galvanized steel coils. The figures show that generally in most sectors, imports were up in the busy Christmas season, and all in all, merchandise imports for 2019 amounted to $1.97 billion. A more severe drought has been forecasted for 2020, and it is expected that the extended dry weather may once again have adverse effects on the New River. In light of the catastrophe that resulted in a massive fish kill along the waterway last year in the north, a task force led by the Department of the Environment is planning and preparing for what lies ahead. According to CEO Dr. Percival Cho, the working group met last week to apprise the ministry on steps that will be taken to control the volumes of runoff from agriculture and urban waste.
We have received some predictions from the Regional Climate Change Center that Belize and several other countries are very likely, going to experience severe drought for an extended period of time that is predicted to be longer than last year. So already that gives us a mandate to be very much more aggressive with preparations for any possible repeat of the eutrophication event we saw last year. So what do those preparations look like? Initially, the task force met last week, and they had discussed around providing an update to the ministry, being myself and the minister, so that we are up to speed on what actions have been taken since last year. So one, and that has been done. Then two, we, in discussion with them, are considering proposing, again, some more aggressive measures to specifically look at controlling the volumes of effluent from point sources that we have identified that are going into the New River. So with eutrophication, as we had explained last year, when there's a lot of nitrogen runoff from agricultural fields, urban areas, coupled with a lot of organic input, say waste material, etc., you get a high level of anaerobic breakdown of these materials, and they create a very toxic environment in the river, right? So if we reduce either amounts of the nitrogen going in or the organic matter, we should be able to see some level of positive impact. But at the same time, we need to be prepared for any event.
After the break, meet Julio Chub, the recipient of the 2019 Disney Conservation Hero Award.
My team, royal team.
The Corozal Town Council's garbage collection woes will soon come to an end. The council will soon acquire 2 garbage trucks courtesy of the Japan Embassy. The official grant contract signing ceremony was held on Tuesday between the council and the embassy for $199,000. According to Mayor Rigoberto Vellas, the council has earmarked the monies to purchase a compactor truck and an open back truck. He says that the trucks will be in the council's possession in the next couple of months.
At the moment, we don't have all our trucks working, and I thank the community for being so patient and understanding. At this very moment, we're in, it's difficult to pick up garbage when you don't have the proper tools. And as a council, that's one of the basic services that you need to provide to your community. So I am sure that with these gifts that will come in a couple of months, our job will be done more efficiently and effectively. And look at us today, we're signing the documents to make sure that we get 2 new trucks, a compactor truck and a regular truck in Corozal, which is much needed. We all know that garbage has always been a problem, not only for Belize, but for the world. And it's our job as a council to make sure that we find the ways to dispose garbage and dispose it the right way. I am sure that the people of Corozal will appreciate it.
Belize's very own Julio Chub was awarded the 2019 Disney Conservation Hero Award. Chub is the liaison officer of Yashe Conservation Trust and is regarded as a community-oriented conservation hero who's committed the past 2 decades of his life to conservation and community empowerment in southern Belize. The award recognizes local citizens for their commitment to saving wildlife-protected habitats and who inspire their communities to take part in conservation efforts, and Chub did just that. Yashe Conservation Trust prepared a video to celebrate the success of one of their own.
Communities are important in the work that we do. It is very important for them to be engaged actively and very involved, because I have seen it and believe that involving them and having them participate brings about change, positive change in conservation. How are the farms? How are the communities? And it makes me feel good that some of these young people back then that attended summer camp, the BioBlitz, and the Yashe Farmers Expo, and even myself going and presenting to them in the school, talking about agroforestry, talking about what threatens our area or natural resources, and some of them really got inspired and went on studying natural resource management. It makes me want to continue to do what I'm doing.
When we come back, public and private sector meet to discuss the standards for biodegradable goods.
TV and internet.
The Department of the Environment, in partnership with the Belize Bureau of Standards, is hosting a seminar to establish a collective benchmark for use of the term biodegradable in respect of local standards. This morning, dozens of participants from the private sector attended the second day of the workshop to learn more about the various levels of biodegradability. Chief Executive Officer Dr. Percival Cho explains what biodegradable means, as well as the differences in terminology.
This is a multiple day workshop. So yesterday was for government regulators, customs, environment, Bureau of Standards, trade, etc. to discuss the terminology around biodegradable standards, what it means, in order to get that information that they need to domestically, nationally prepare our own standards, right? So today is the same, it's a repeat, but it's for the private sector. So we have various companies listed here, including manufacturers of biodegradable products, including importers and including prospective companies who are interested in getting into the business. And the discussion, as you noted from the presentation, has to do with, again, understanding the terminology. What do we mean by biodegradable? There are different levels and there are different types. And so that is going to be explained, questions taken for everybody to walk away with a clear understanding of what standards that we are going to develop and for what purposes.
Now, will these standards, while they are only being explained here today, be placed into some kind of legislation as backup?
Yes, as you know, the legislation was passed a few weeks ago. What that currently says in terms of what it means to be biodegradable is that the definition, notwithstanding at the moment, because we're developing yet, we are going to put in place an interim definition, which is that 50% of the material that is used to make these products have to be from a plant-based source, right? So 50% bio-based.
With 30 years of industrial experience in plastics and packaging, Kelvin Okamoto, CEO of Gen 3 Bio, was invited as a guest speaker to address the issue of biodegradability. He commented favorably on Belize's move toward adopting biodegradability standards.
It's great that Belize is willing to take these steps. Based upon what other countries have already done, they can now use what other countries have learned and implement an up-to-date system for standards and for implementation of laws and regulations for producing and importing compostable, biodegradable products for food service and so on. I think there's a lot of interest, and I think some of these standards are a little different than what they anticipated they would be, but they're very willing to look at what possible amendments or revisions might be needed to the proposed standards.
Coming up after the break, the Ministry of Health continues to monitor the coronavirus that continues to spread worldwide.
perspective.
The Southern Workers Union has received its trade union certification. The SWU is now certified as a bargaining agent for employees of the Dangrigga Town Council. The union is made up of 33 members and is led by President Glenn Lewis. Today, the Ministry of Labor, Local Government and Rural Development, along with the tripartite body, congratulated the Southern Workers Union on becoming the first trade union for 2020. Dangrigga Mayor Francis Humphreys was present to share remarks and support to the union. The National Agriculture and Trade Show will be held on May 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of this year. The annual event will be celebrating its 50th anniversary this year with the theme Innovations in Technology, Driving a Climate-Resilient and Competitive Agriculture and Food Sector. A press release issued today announcing the dates says that preparation of the grounds is currently underway. The reservation and sale of concession stands, food stalls, open spots, and commercial booths will start on February 3rd, 2020, and the right of first refusal will be granted to 2019 leaseholders. Those vendors will have until February 21st to confirm their desire to reestablish their booth leases by contacting NAT's headquarters. The NAT's committee says that the preference exists except where there's a reconfiguration of the grounds or removal of booths, in which case that space is no longer available for rental. Effective February 24th, potential new vendors or those wishing to relocate will be invited to visit the National Agriculture and Trade Show headquarters. Interested persons are asked to get in touch with the committee for more information. The Ministry of Health has issued a release outlining the steps taken to monitor all epidemiological information and surveillance activities in relation to the coronavirus. Officials have since met with airport authorities and relevant stakeholders to review screening methods and processes to be implemented in the event of any suspected case. The release says that to date, this region, including Belize, has no confirmed case of the novel virus. The ministry remains engaged with the Caribbean Public Health Agency to keep everyone abreast of the regional response. The best way to reduce spreading viruses and minimizing infection is practicing proper hand washing hygiene, covering nose and mouth when coughing and sneezing with tissue or inside elbows, and avoiding contact with anyone with cold or flu-like symptoms.
It's a common flu symptoms, dry cough, fever, body aches. That's what's being documented, of course, as more information becomes available. That it might be other symptoms. That's one. Two, when we reviewed the mortality situation, we found out that most of the patients that had died had other chronic diseases, diabetes, hypertension, and it seemed to be older patients that were dying. I think the average of those, when we reviewed data last week, was 65. So it's a virus that can complicate any situation in any given patient that may have other chronic diseases. Basic hand washing becomes the hallmark of prevention, and proper respiratory hygiene, which means you should avoid touching your face. If you do have the flu, avoid being in contact with others. Coughing into your elbow, the usual situations that we've been bringing across in whenever the flu comes around.
And that's the news. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Marlene Cuellar. Thanks for joining us. And from all of us here at News 5, good night.